nomad of the teaching profession. Never seemed to have the same classroom, certainly more than once a week, and lugging books and everything around was a bit of a pain. So started to use the iPad really just as a means of just transporting my own technology around in terms of PowerPoints and everything. It was all in one place, and I knew I could rely on just sort of hooking it into whatever projector I might have in the classroom that I was in. Kind of then just started looking around at apps that I could use, and it slowly developed into helping me develop a course which was a little bit more engaging for the students. Students I was teaching, lots of EAL students, lots of disengagement. They were sort of opting to do the BTEC because they couldn't really think of anything else to do. So I'm sure a lot of you can identify with those sorts of backgrounds. Quickly emerged though that by sort of jazzing up the course a little bit, doing a little bit more interactive stuff using the iPads, that actually we were getting a lot of the more academic, should we say, students onto the course, and getting some really good results from it. So hence that's where we are here now with the course. So I'll head on. So first of all, looking at some of the outcomes of today's session, identifying very briefly where in the spec technology can support, and there's lots of different places. I've primarily looked at the new level 2 specification, but you'll be able to identify lots of places for yourselves. Identifying key apps that I feel are of massive benefit to delivery of the course, of capturing students' evidence and supporting marking, and just to give sort of new ways of submitting assignments to students and what they can present to you in the form of evidence back. And then obviously demonstrating the use of those apps, and hopefully we'll try and get as interactive with that as possible. So here's a list of the apps that I feel are very useful. So these are the ones that we're going to go through today. Some of them aren't necessarily specifically iPad apps. So Edmodo and Google Drive aren't specifically just an app for your iPad, but have lots of uses when used on the iPad. An iBuild app at the bottom is an app building thing, which I found is quite useful for just sort of engaging students. So I added it in there, and hopefully we'll have enough time to go over the use of that within the BTEC specification and in creating exciting, engaging assignment briefs for you. Okay, so straight away, just have a look at the BTEC specification, and I just sort of highlighted a few of them, and just having a look through here of ones which I think lend themselves massively to using video technology or audio recording or all sorts of other things to capture what it is the students are doing in a session, to allow you to make it a little bit more practical, to get the students out of the classroom as much as possible. And it is about being vocational. So capturing the students doing things practically is always going to be a benefit for both you in terms of marking and for the students in terms of their engagement in the session. So just looking at this one, this is from the practical module. So looking at the rules and regulations and scoring systems, I'm sure you'll agree there's lots of ways that you can do this in a classroom, which could be quite dry. There's also lots of ways that you can do this in a practical setting, which is a lot more engaging. So what we'll look at is how some of the apps that you use can enable you to capture all the things that students are doing, evidence all the things that the students are doing, and utilize that towards their assessment for all of the criteria that they need to meet. For example, topic A6 looks at the roles of the officials, so what they should do within the session. Nice and easy to get kids doing practical activities, and then to just record what they've done. And using apps in different ways, you can get them to comment on what was happening and what should be improved. So really looking to push them from merit up to distinction types of activities. Looking at a couple of the other modules then, the technical and tactical demands of sports. Again, I found that this can be a little bit dry with the students at times. They may just be writing something down, or even just verbally having a conversation with you, and you doing witness testimonials for the students. But I've sourced a couple of apps which take it to another level and try to get them thinking more like Sky Sports panelists, where they can actually draw on the screen and talk to you about the tactics that might be used in a game, and it goes down quite well with the students. They seem to enjoy doing it in that different way. And so all the way through there, so relevant tactics, effective use of skills and techniques, correct application, and all of those sorts of things lend themselves quite nicely to those video type analysis apps, and with a little tweak of how they're used, is a good source of evidence. Reviewing own sports performance, observation checklists, different ways of analysing checklists of things. So we've got a few apps which can lend themselves quite nicely to that. It even says in there about the self-analysis completion of observation checklists. There are a couple of apps which do this in such a neat way that students sometimes don't even realise what they're doing, and you can capture all of that down, and it's another tick the box for the students. And again, it's how it would be done if they were doing this in the real world. If they were actually coaching other people, they probably wouldn't sit down and write reams and reams of words down on a piece of paper. They probably would do this in a practical way. So again, it's more training for the real world. And the last one that I picked out was one that certainly my students find very difficult. They don't seem to grasp this, and it's going to be different in different schools. Everyone's experience is different, but where they're looking at training programs and how to develop those things, we were doing it on posters, and we were trying to make it as dynamic as possible, but they weren't really grasping its relevance to what they should be doing. So we looked at things like podcasts and getting students to make their own videos. And again, it just sort of took it to the next level, seemed to resonate with the students, and they're actually really got on board with the things that they could do instead. They're just creating sort of a 3-minute podcast on a type of training, and getting them to think about how they would verbalize that to people that might be using it whilst out training. Just seemed to get them to think more about what it was they're asking people to do, whereas a flat piece of paper with a few pictures and a written description of a training method wasn't really inspiring them to do much. Okay, so let's get into the apps then. First of all, Evernote. Now, Evernote was the first app that I really started to use for my BTEC delivery, and I can share some of that with you now. So I'm just going to get my screen up so you can see. Oops. Something doesn't seem to be working on my device. 1 second. I first of all started using Evernote as a means of just sharing documents with students. Evernote, if you're not sure of its uses, is a note-taking app. When it's combined with the video camera and audio recording functions of the iPad, it means that you can take audio notes and video and still notes as well. So first of all, I just started to use it to capture things that were happening in the lesson. So students would do their work for me in the lesson, and I could just go around and take photos of the things they were doing. It was more of a way of me just capturing what was being done in the lesson. The more I started to explore it, I could kind of see that there was a lot of scope for it to be used as an evidencing tool, specifically for capturing BTEC evidence. And here we go. Hopefully, he says there just seems to be an issue with me mirroring my screen for a second. Let me just try and work that out. Apologies for that. Whilst I'm just getting that to work, has anyone got any questions on anything I've said so far? Is there any specific modules that you're looking at for advice on in order to support with that? If you just want to type those questions into the box, then hopefully as we're going through, I can refer to those questions. Okay, so this is my my iPad screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. And this is, I'm just going to quickly go through how I've used Evernote and some of the other uses, and hopefully you'll be able to see for yourselves what the uses it can have. So I'm just going to share some of the work that students did for me a few years ago. At first, this was one boy's write-up of badminton rules and regulations, and you can see how this is quite early on in trying to use the iPad for engaging the students. I literally just took a photo of some of the writing he'd done about the session. Quite simple to do. So up at the top, you can add in new notes. As you can see along the top, I can choose to add a picture, so I can take a photo of something, a photo that I've already taken of something, or I can record audio. So there's the pictures and there's the audio